Welcome filmmakers, fans, and friends to the Indie Cinema Showcase. I'm your host, John Theisen. Each episode, my cinephile friend Tim Anderson and I will be here to bring you the best and brightest in local independent cinema. But more than that, we're here to bring you face-to-face with the men and women that help bring your film community to life.
Each show will kick things off with a short film that was created by a Florida filmmaker. Then John and I will offer our thoughts, reactions, criticisms, and hey, wild speculation. Now, I know there's some filmmakers out there who are like, hey, but wait a minute, I made a movie for like $50,000 on my credit card, and are you going to give me any respect? And guys, trust me, we're going to show you the love too. We're going to show a feature-length trailer for an upcoming film that was lensed in the Central Florida area.
And after we show you our shorts, we'll welcome an industry guest, be that a writer, director, actor, whomever. We'll bring them onto the show and discuss what's going on today in the fast-paced world of independent cinema.
And finally, we'll wrap things up by answering some of your internet questions about the who's, what's, whens, where's, whys, and how's, and what do I use this plug for so that you guys can get out there and make your own micro-budget masterpieces.
All right, guys, let's get things rolling with a very thought-provoking short film about an American Muslim who ponders his position in the United States. The film is entitled A Man in the Attic and is directed by Imran Zaidi.
Lately, I've had a different definition for the word friend. Friend. It really is an odd word, friend. One of those hard to define words like love or hate or murder. Steeped in emotion but mired in cause and effect. Birthed by proximity but nurtured by separation. Close enough to feel like family, but without that blind familial devotion. Somewhere beyond respect, but before adulation. Somewhere beyond acquaintance, but before some interminable point that staggers definition. But why or how has this vague definition changed for me recently? I suppose it may have shaken and twitched into new form under the burden of current events, under the excruciating loneliness of being different than the majority of those around me, a minority, if you will. I've spoken words about this before, asking, daring, begging others to profile me into their minds, hoping to have my unextreme mind make an extreme impact on them. But what is more lonely than to know that you won't be understood? What is more lonely than to know the world has forgotten the basic rule of humanity? To just say what you mean and to mean what you say. To me, they'll speak of peaches and cream, but somewhere in their heart is instead beer and wine, bacon and sausage, and every pollutant that will forever keep them from really understanding, much less caring about me. Can I even ask them to? Can I ask them to care about quiet brown shadows and unknowns living in faraway lands, wishing for faraway things, quietly living, when all they ever see are the loudest, most malevolent, tiny minority of shouting dark shadows who hate for hate's sake, who create mischief for mischief's sake? My fellow Americans seem to ask for a killing, to kill before the brown shadows have the chance to turn dark, but they don't shout kill. They do so with their words, their vote, their support of a politician, their bumper stickers, their yard signs. And those they want to kill are me. That's all I can think when I stroll, when I stumble through the streets of my small neighborhood. Their vote, their support of a politician, their bumper stickers, their yard signs. It's so incredibly lonely. What did I do for them to hate me? What did we do but be captured and oppressed, first under a Turkish odyssey and then under a stranglehold just recently released by old British colonels? And then the iron grip immediately transferred to other dark-skinned forces trained by the best, ready to sell their own people away, to retain the power the colonels left behind, to tighten the grip around our throats before it ever even loosened. And now the stranglers, they bite the hands that fed them, and the new hands that joined them in the feeding, and the rest of us become suspect. First oppressed by one, and then another, and now another. You'd think we'd be accustomed to this, and maybe we are. Except now they spit on us as well. We are the villains, we are the dark and insurgent, we are the enemies within the safe heartland, stenching up the vast fertile prairie with our own mix of vile spice, hell-bent on your destruction. We must be controlled, we must be captured, we must be interned. We may be killed, but only in the quietness of a faraway place, and we can argue about it here where it's safe, where nobody pays attention. We must all of us, be stripped of our humanity because a tiny piece of us caused harm. We cannot be allowed to become friends of yours. Friends. What is that word? To me, a friend will be that one who remembers that dear girl Anne of Amsterdam and allows me solace in their attic, the one above their eyes. And while the rest of you laugh because you don't think it will come to that, because you don't think that I would have to escape way up high into an attic and whisper every word quietly, I will tell you a secret. Run through the streets to every state, every city, every zip code, every home, and into every attic. And when you bust open the doors, you might find some of us already there, in someone's attic. And you may laugh again because you insist the time of hiding will never come. Not here in the nation of burned down tents of red, and torn skin of black, and bitter camps of yellow. There's nothing, absolutely nothing I can do that will change your mind. And while you say it will never come, and your lips utter, not here, for me it already has come, and here.
Once again, that was Man in the Attic, directed by Imran Zaidi. Now, each show we like to give our own thoughts from the popcorn gallery and offer our feedback on the films we showcase, because we picked them and we like them. So, John, tell me, what'd you think of Imran's film?
Well, I think it's a great film. I always like filmmakers that make their independent cinema very, very personal, and I think this is a huge testament to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, for those that didn't know, Imran was actually the actor in the film as well. So it makes it even that much more personal because not only is he doing the voiceover, telling it from a point of view of his culture and his culture in the United States, but he's also the actor. So I think it really brings you close in as an audience member.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting movie. It's almost an experimental film, but with a very linear narrative in the voiceover that carries it over the top of it. But also, like you said, it's a very personal film for Imran, and I think that it's, to open-minded individuals, it's something to look at, and it's a magical production. You're stepping inside the mind of someone who really feels like, the whole world can be against them at times. And you don't have to be Muslim or anything really other than a human being walking on the earth today to have that feeling every once in a while. So I think that even though Imran's movie has a niche audience in the most, simple respect. Really, it's a much broader overall theme of alienation in the world today. And I love the movie.
Well, and I think as we kind of segued into the film, we said it was thought-provoking. And I think that's what people, if you didn't agree with the film, you don't have to agree with every film you get to see.
No.
But it does show you from a different perspective. And I think, people always say, walk a mile in that person's shoes. Well, this film is not from our point of view as ugly white Caucasian Americans. It's from Imran's.
I'm not ugly.
Well, that's subjective, I guess.
Yeah.
But from
like film.
Yeah, exactly. And from Imran's point of view, as an American Muslim, and from the culture that he grew up in, and you see that in a lot of Imran's films, and I'm really happy that we could showcase this week.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We've got Imran on the show, and you and I have seen quite a few of Imran's movies, so we'll be excited about having him here and talk about that.
And that's exactly why he's on today. So when we come back from the break, we'll be talking with writer, director, and actor of this short film we just watched, Imran Zaidi. So stick around. Welcome back. On ICS, we want to do more than just show indie movies to our audiences. So for this episode's Industry Insights segment, we have the perfect tie-in to the film we just watched. We have with us the actual filmmaker behind A Man in the Attic. I'm pleased to welcome writer, director, and for this specific case, actor as well, Imran Zaidi. Thanks for being here, Imran.
Thanks for having me.
So, Imran, tell me, how did you originally get into filmmaking?
I would say that I've always been a writer, and I was actually for a while, I was doing technical writing, instructional manuals, and online documentation, all that kind of boring stuff. And I've always been a writer and also a photographer. And so putting those two together is filmmaking. So, and that's basically how I gradually made a kind of transition into filmmaking.
Imran, what are you trying to accomplish with your movies? Because they seem very personal.
Definitely personal. Part of my challenges as a Muslim filmmaker, as an ethnic filmmaker, is to sort of tell stories that aren't normally told, and that's a challenge that I think all independent filmmakers have whenever there isn't sort of, when you are a minority or have a particular way of thinking. And so I try to represent that. I try to represent myself or things that I see in the way that I've grown up in film.
Now, I think A Man in the Attic is very powerful. Can you explain to us what the genesis was? Because obviously it's a personal story.
It was after the 2004 election. I was feeling pretty burnt out for obvious reasons. And as a Muslim, there was a lot of things that people say that's fine, legitimate criticism, but then there's also some things where people really go overboard with the things that are allowed to be said, and there's nobody to really check, or there's no checks or balances sometimes with some of this stuff when it gets very politicized. And so this sort of came out of that. It was a piece of spoken word, and eventually, gradually over time, I transitioned it into being a sort of, it's almost like an experimental documentary, sort of self-narrated, to sort of express the emotions and the feelings of that time.
Is it important to you as a Muslim filmmaker to represent your culture in a certain light to the world?
Well, that's the challenge, and that's a discussion I was having with another Muslim filmmaker recently. Is that you have the challenge because you want to be true and represent the flaws and all those kinds of things. And inherent to the nature of filmmaking is sort of dealing with flaws or showing flaws. And so that's part of the challenge. In this particular film, it's more of a self-expression, but there's other films that I'm working on that kind of deal with some of those issues of, it's not that these characters are perfect Muslims and they're doing all, there's flaws that they have, and how do they overcome those?
Now, as I mentioned earlier, you actually also acted in this film. So explain that dynamic to us, because obviously it's a lot of work to be a writer-director, but then when you also put yourself on the screen, maybe there's less people for you to argue with, but explain that dynamic in regards to that.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously there is less people to wrangle together for the shoot and all that kind of stuff, but I felt that this particular story was one that I had to, because it was so personal. In this particular case, I felt like it had to be me in front of the camera, because partly because I wouldn't subject somebody else to potentially what could be a lightning rod, and also because I just feel like this was a way for me to to really get the point across that this really is me. This is a very personal story, and you're getting it all. You're getting me visually, and you're getting my words, and you're getting my narration.
Now, have you ever acted before?
A very little bit in some of my own work, and I swore I'd never do it again. I did take some acting classes after that, and you know, while this isn't a standard narrative type, but I think that helped me along being in front of the camera.
Well, what our audience at home might not know is you actually have made several films since this. So what's your goal as an artist, or what are you building up to? What do you hope to do someday if you continue to make films of this caliber?
Well, I think you know, initially as a filmmaker, when you're you know, trying to make your way, directing is a big part of it, because you want to be able to tell the stories that you write, and you have this sort of control that if you just wrote and gave it to somebody else that you don't necessarily have. But I consider myself more a writer than a director. And so over time, I hope to work towards pushing my writing career more so than my directing career, but they're part and parcel. I mean, they're really, it's all part of telling a story. So I don't ever see a time where I'm not directing as well. But I think the next stage for me is to really grow the writing and the screenwriting.
Well, once again, Imran, thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your insights. It was very informative.
Absolutely. We're really, really glad you came onto the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To find out more about Imran Zaidi or his upcoming projects, visit theseventhlevel.net.
Now, on to this episode's feature, a trailer that spotlights local indie film alumni Fred Zara's first foray into feature filmmaking, a very personal documentary entitled Average Community, about the life of a 14-year-old punk rock drummer from New Jersey and the man he grows up to be.
So Trenton's the capital of New Jersey. But a lot of people don't know that Trenton was actually the capital of the United States of America for a short period.
I think it's funny that like the primary paper of Trenton dropped the Trenton from their name. They're now just known as the Times.
It's not the end. The sun
She was just so full of love for everyone.
is blue again.
We were at her wedding the year before at the same church. The next year we were at her funeral.
From what I hear, you don't look too good.
Really? Who was the last person to say?
Who the hell knows where he is right now?
Yeah.
So I understand you trying to find an old friend?
We are trying to find an old friend, yes.
See, I mean, that's rock and roll. You finally get into a place that you've been dying to play. It's a legendary place.
And you just have
we just really
I promise before you even got there.
More than a band. It's the beginning of a new generation.
I don't think I remember playing a POW show not totally drunk.
Chris was so drunk he could barely stand up on stage.
But we're all getting together for the first time in 20 years.
They told us never to come back.
Have a good flight.
after the bands broke up, I was done. I was like one of these washed up rock stars.
Falls apart. Don't try to save me.
You've only been here in Trenton. You've only done this. You haven't seen the world.
We didn't know anything outside of Trenton. Nothing.
The closer you get, the further I go. I wanna forget what I thought I knew, and it all can fade to blue.
Maybe I'm trying to just bring some meaning to my life.
Well, we're all trying to do that, but really, is there any meaning?
If you'd like to know more about this feature film, visit its website at sketchbookproductions.com. Now, since we're not here just to show you all some indie masterpieces and listen to ourselves talk, we're going to try to impart some wisdom with our fun facts segment presented by greenroomorlando.com.
These facts are sent in to us from all over the world through the magic of the internet. The episode's question this week is from Corey. Dear ICS, I'm about to kick off my first independent production, and unfortunately, I don't have enough money to pay everyone who'll be helping me. If I can only pay a few key people in my crew, who should it be? I want to make sure I'm getting the most bang for my buck. John, what do you think?
You know, that's a dilemma we all deal with. There's not enough money, and if you stretch it out too thin, you pay everybody $5, and you might as well not have paid them.
Yeah, it's insulting.
I would say, though, especially because you and I have viewed films for years, the biggest mistake I see most people drop the ball on is lighting and sound.
Absolutely.
So not to undercut any of the other industry positions on a film crew, on a film set, but lighting and sound is the most important, because if no matter how good the story is, if the film doesn't look good or you can't see it and you can't hear it, it's never going to get into a festival. It's never going to get to that next level. So if I only, to Corey's question, had two main key positions to pay, I'd pay a lighting guy and I'd pay my sound guy to make sure those bases are covered.
Corey, I want to address, because John really knocked it out of the ballpark with that one. I mean, really, your camera guy, your sound guy, those are your keys. If you can't see the film, you can't hear the film, what did you make the film for? So the other thing I want to address is, since you're not paying your cast and crew, you really need to make sure that you spend the bulk of your production money that's remaining on food to feed them. Because I promise you that if you bring them all there and you don't pay them and you don't feed them, that, you may end up on the news because they'll kill you.
No, you got to keep everybody. You have to respect these people are working for free.
Yeah.
And so, feeding them, no matter what you're ordering for them, it has to be more than just Doritos, on a table somewhere. Spend an extra $1, go to CC's,
get a pizza,
get a pizza, or do something to make sure your people are well fed. But another point I want to make, Tim, is that you aren't paying these people, so you have to surround yourself with good people. Not that they always have to be your friends, but real reliable people, because really when you're not paying somebody, you lose the ability to hold them accountable. There's no money tied to that. They're not afraid of losing the job, because in a sense they're doing you the favor.
Yeah.
So I do feel that when Corey's out there, he really has to pick the best people that he knows, even though he's not going to pay them, they're going to show up and they're not going to leave him hanging at the end of the day.
Yeah, Corey, think of it like this. You're a general and you're going into battle. The film shoot is your battle. And you need these people to be behind you 100% of the time, because without a financial incentive, the only thing that they have dragging them to your set every day is your intense love and desire that you've instilled in them. So really consider that. And if you have to hire your friends, then by all means hire your friends. But if possible, try to get people that do have experience, that do know what they're doing. It's going to make your life easier in the long run.
I think a lot of filmmakers take for granted that passion is infectious.
That's right. If you want to be part of our Fun Facts segment, you can submit your questions by visiting the ICS link on greenroomorlando.com. If you ask us a question and we don't know the answer, we'll figure it out. Now, it's time for my favorite segment of the show, Films to See Before You Die.
Now, are you looking for something a bit obscure to check out late night? Well, each episode, Tim and I try to pick a few DVDs that may have slipped past your radar, but films that we think you absolutely need to feast your eyes on. So, Tim, What do you have for us this episode?
Well, it's fantastic because this episode I'm totally cheating. I picked a trilogy. It's the Three Colors trilogy by Polish director Krzysztof Kieslowski. I saw this movie for the first time in 1992-93. That's when the trilogy was created. And that was when I was just getting into film as a sort of a serious study. And I think that these movies, they're based on the colors of the French flag and the themes of the French Revolution: liberty, equality, and fraternity. Each film has a color and each film has a motto. And I just think they're absolutely fabulous. They reignite passion in film and in cinema, and in me they awoken something that I began to look at films as completely artistic. And if you're a burgeoning cinematographer, I think and I consider these movies to be a masterclass in cinematography.
And I won't give you too much for cheating, Tim, because at the end of the day, we make the rules.
That's
so,
right.
I think it's a great DVD pick. My DVD pick that you need to see before you die is Once Upon a Time in the West, directed by Sergio Leone. Now, I have to admit right up front that I am a huge genre spaghetti western fan. Spaghetti westerns, I probably own 20 plus cult spaghetti western films, but I think this one is a must-see because a lot of times this one does slip by people's radar.
Yeah.
You know Sergio Leone's work. I think most people that are connoisseurs of cinema might have seen his 3 Clint Eastwood films, kind of the trilogy.
Fistful of Dollars,
right?
Few Dollars More.
The trilogy, the kind of the Man with No Name trilogy, as they call it. Well, this film stars Charles Bronson, Peter Fonda, and I think, Henry Fonda, my mistake.
That's okay.
But yeah, you're right. A great film. Charles Bronson is the lead. A lot of great lines that come out of this. And to my sensibilities, this is the best Sergio Leone film that he ever made. And I think that people, if you hadn't seen it, check it out. At least see it before you die.
I'll tell you something really interesting about the movie, too, and I think it's an absolutely fantastic pick, is that if it's not the only, it is one of the very, very few times that Henry Fonda plays the bad guy in a movie, and he's bad.
He is the root of all evil in this film.
So definitely check it out.
Well, that's all for this episode, folks. We want to thank you for joining us, and we also want to thank Imran Zaidi for dropping by to share his filmmaking exploits with us, as well, as always, thanking our segment sponsors.
We hope you learned something new, saw something you loved, or got inspired to get off your couch and go make a movie of your own. Maybe it'll be good enough for us to screen on the next Indie Cinema Showcase.
And until then, we say to all you current and upcoming filmmakers, peace, love, and positive reviews. We'll see you next time.